Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Joseph and this is the Fusioneers overview video. Thank you for checking it out. Let's get started. So what is Fusioneers? It's a free Skool community around learning Autodesk Fusion. If you've seen any of my Instagram stories or reels or anything like that, you know that I use Fusion quite often. I get asked a lot about doing some longer tutorials, so this is kind of my response to that. I'll also be posting these tutorials on YouTube, so if you just want to follow along there, I hope that you'll consider subscribing. As I mentioned, it's created by myself. I am actually a MD and BA by training. I'm in radiology residency right now, but I really enjoy doing this. I did biomedical engineering in undergrad, so that's kind of where I got familiar with Fusion. And this is not related to Autodesk. The colors are similar, but otherwise it's very separate for sure. And just to add some value to you for watching this is a free PDF that you can download that has the Fusion shortcuts and just a nice little ruler. We also have a metric version where the grid is in metric rather than in the customary system. So if you want that, it's available on Fusioneers for free. So check that out if you're interested. And these are the 3 goals for Fusioneers. So I just want to teach kind of the basics of Fusion. Personally get a lot of reward from trying to make a design that I find useful around the house. Sometimes it's for clients that need something done, but just the process of kind of coming up with your own design to me has really been rewarding, in particular, just personally. And then I also kind of want to talk about how to design for 3D printing. I think there's a lot of channels that teach Fusion in different ways, but I think really kind of understanding some design principles for 3D printing as you're designing, which I'm assuming most of you probably want to learn Fusion for 3D printing. It's pretty common that that's the case. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think this will be hopefully beneficial to you. And then another thing that kind of speaks to me is I know a lot of teachers, either middle school or high school, have kind of reached out to me and mentioned that they've used some of my tips in their classes. So I thought it'd be nice to kind of provide a little more structured course for kind of getting started. And the first courses will be very, very beginner. So if you've never done Fusion before, this is a good place to start. And just a little background about myself. I don't necessarily want to spend much time on this, but hopefully it'll give a little color to who I am and kind of what I've done in the past. So if you've ever watched Last Chance U, I'm actually this guy here. It's a Netflix series that follows a junior college football team. When I was on the series, it was at East Mississippi, and this is actually a GQ article. So technically, I'm a GQ model. and I'm kidding about that, but anyway, cool to say that. And then there was as I mentioned, the Last Chance U is the Netflix series. This is season 1, and there I am. And this is also me. This is a pretty big episode in the season, and I kind of mentioned some foreshadowing. So if you want to go back and check out what I mumbled to DJ Law right before kind of something happened in episode 5. So go check that out if you're interested. And then more recently, I've already mentioned I went to UAB, did biomedical engineering after I left scuba, and recently got an MD and BA at UAB. So graduated from med school, and now I'm in radiology residency at UAB. I'll be starting this summer. Right now I'm in what we call a transitional year, the year before radiology residency starts, but I'm in the Birmingham area. So, and I guess I say all that because I'm not a designer by trade. I've learned it over time, and honestly, I've learned it through YouTube for free. I've had a class in CAD in the past, but it was in Creo, which is a different design software. So it took me a while to kind of get the basics of Fusion. Hopefully, this kind of course will help others that are possibly transitioning from a different CAD program, because there's a lot of overlap, but there are some kind of tricks that you have to kind of understand from Fusion compared to some other design software. And again, this is kind of reiterating that. I learned Creo in undergrad. I'm not at a large engineering firm. I have a small business that I design stuff myself. I make stuff for Amazon and then for YouTube in particular. And wanted to kind of just show y'all some of the stuff that I made, just to kind of give you some idea of the types of things that I started off with. So this is actually the first design that I ever made. This is actually a handle for a Kawasaki mule. It's an ATV, and you can see here that this is not a very good model. Just generally speaking, the timeline is kind of messed up, and if I went back and redesigned this, it would be a lot different, to say the least. And then here is my senior design project that I did in BME, and this is actually a Braille highlighter. So this is the case for it, and this is the actual mechanism. The idea was, some people read Braille by sight, especially the people that are teaching people Braille. And this was like a sponge that was supposed to be held off the paper to kind of highlight the Braille. It's kind of interesting, but again, you see down here, like I was not very good at CAD at this point. When you have all these yellow things, that means you don't have very good referenced sketches. And this is just to show you that you can get better. I modeled this, but it wasn't great, but I did it. And I think that the important thing is just to get started. Here's another thing I did. Again, you can see here, not very good. So this is after probably a year of using Fusion. This is for a DJI Mavic drone. It kind of clipped on to the top of the drone. You could attach a GoPro. At one point, that was something that I was looking into having made. I actually made some of them using 3D printing and sold some on Amazon, but ended up deciding to kind of go in a different direction. This is actually a product. I never finished it, honestly. Printed off a couple, but what this was supposed to do is, if you're familiar with Apple products, the Apple Watch has that circular charger. So the idea was you could put the Apple Watch charger here and then wrap the cord around this side. And then this was before there was USB-C, so this was USB-A, and they would kind of slide into here. And then you could put the brick on the side here, and then you could also have like your phone charger on this side. So it was like a 2-brick cable organization system, and it turned out okay, but obviously this is not great CAD practice either. It's just a really long timeline for what it is. But again, you kind of learn as you go. This is a little bit more recent thing that I did. It was a research project where we were trying to do a VR simulation for a headset, and this kind of clipped into one of the VR controllers that have the rings around them. So this would clip into that, and you could kind of figure out where you were in space, and we were simulating an ultrasound. This is another more recent design. This is called the gate grabber. The idea was that a gate would come in here, and this would slide up and then fall back down and catch the gate. So this is a little bit better. As you can see, I've kind of got better with designing over time. This is the brick bud. This is a pretty popular post that I made pretty recently. This is kind of another take on cable organization. This is a USB-C cable, and then the brick here, this is just kind of for fun, but you can see here that the USB-C can actually, you can take this off and then put it on this end to keep up with it when it's plugged into the wall. And then this is, I don't have it constrained right, but this is the power brick here from Apple. So, and then kind of my bigger projects were the DLAC. This is a enclosure for the Prusa Mark IV and Prusa Mini and Prusa Mark III series of 3D printers. Recently added this hexagon skirt here for being able to mount the LCD outside, and then also add some height if you need like a brick or something to sit under the enclosure. So this is a little more recent, kind of higher quality design. And then again, another enclosure design is the Sumo. This is for the Prusa XL. So this is a pretty involved design, as you can see, but yeah, it's kind of an overview of what I've done and kind of my background and some stuff that you can expect that I can teach you how to do, because I've done this in the past. So I thought it'd be helpful just to give y'all an idea of the type of things that I've designed. And then this is just a disclaimer. I don't want anyone to expect me to be some type of Fusion savant by any means. So I'm not going to claim that the way I design stuff is the best. I'm not going to say that it's technically correct or textbook. I do know some general guidelines of how you're supposed to design things in CAD and Fusion in particular, but sometimes I don't follow the rules. Like sometimes I do things the way I feel like it makes sense, but it might not make sense to you. And I'm going to show you, especially in the early couple of lessons, that there's a lot of ways to design the same thing. And that's something I want to emphasize is I'm not perfect. I'm not the best Fusion designer ever. Like there's a lot of people that are a lot better than I am, but I do think that I think about things in a fairly logical way usually. And, you know, if there's a better way to do it, please suggest it to me and I'll make sure that I make another video or correct my video. Again, it's just how I think about doing things. And I've kind of mentioned this before, but the big thing is just to start. You know, I just showed you kind of, I guess, 5 or 6 years of my design history of different files, and I've gotten a lot better because I've got a lot of repetitions at it. So again, if you're interested in it and you want to take it seriously, you just need to put in the time to get better and design some stuff, and hopefully this type of course will help you with that. All right, so I just want to go over briefly, you know, if you should sign up for the Skool Community. It's a free community, so it doesn't cost anything, but I don't want you to waste your time. So these are kind of what I came up with who should join. You know, if you're new to computer-aided design or CAD and you just want to learn Fusion, I think this will be good for you and helpful. You know, if you've tried to model something before and gotten stuck on it, maybe you have some idea that you're trying to kind of prototype and you can't figure out a way to make it, then hopefully this will be helpful. And then something that I think that'll be useful for a lot of people is just practicing modeling different things with video tutorials. And I'm planning to have some PDFs available, so hopefully you can look at the PDF, attempt the model, you know, do it by yourself if you want to, and then watch the video and kind of figure out how I modeled what it is. And then I'm going to try to share tips about Fusion. You know, that's the goal of this, is to kind of teach y'all what I've learned over 5 years in a pretty short, or in a short period of time, to kind of cut down your learning curve a little bit. And now for who should not join. So I think this is just as important. I don't want you to waste your time again. If you're a very experienced CAD designer, you're probably better than me, to be honest. So please don't waste your time with this. This is mainly for beginners. As the course progresses, I'll try to get more complex, but this will be very, very basic initially. So if you are advanced and you just want to check it out, like, you can probably skip the first couple of lessons for sure. And one thing that I'm not really going to cover much at this point is injection molded parts. I've made one design for an injection molded part, so I'm not an expert at that. I know some of the concepts of like draft angle and ribs and things like that, but I'm not claiming to be a professional at injection molded stuff at all. And then obviously this is a Fusion class. You know, Fusioneers in the name is Fusion. This is not for Creo or for SolidWorks or anything like that. And then I don't do much with surfaces. It's a separate workspace. So the main thing I work in is the solid modeling workspace. I would like to learn more about surfaces, just to be honest. I think it's very useful from time to time, but it's not something that I do a lot of, so it won't be a big focus here. And then another thing is, if you want to learn to design more organic shapes, generally speaking, that's better suited for Blender. It's a different type of modeling software than Fusion. So if that's what you're looking for, I would recommend looking at some Blender-related tutorials. Notably, the donut one on YouTube is really good. I've done some of that before, and it's a really well done tutorial. And these are just some guarantees that I have for Fusioneers. If you do decide to sign up, I'm not going to change the community from free to paid. At some point, I may decide to offer a whole different community where it is a paid community, but right now I'm focusing primarily on Fusioneers. It's going to be free. All the tutorials that I ever do will be free. I'm not going to do a tutorial and put it behind a paywall. As I've kind of mentioned, some of the idea I had behind this was that some teachers in classrooms could use my content if they want to, and the PDFs and things like that. So that's always going to be free. And I'll be happy to address questions that are relevant in a Loom recording. So similar to this one, I'll have a place on Skool where you can add comments, you can ask questions, you can ask me what I think about different things, and I'll be happy to answer those in a Loom recording, kind of all bundled together. And I'll read your comments and DMs, but I'm not going to respond in text format. I have limited time, and I think generally speaking, responses, where I can actually show you things like on Loom, which is a video recording or screen recording software. I think that'll be better anyway. So hopefully this will work. And the way that I'm thinking about it now is you post your comments in the section on Skool, you ask your questions, and then I'll post a response video of all the questions, and then we'll make a new thread about the next set of questions. So hopefully that'll be helpful, and then we can kind of do timestamps for when I answer individual questions. And then I'm not going to review your designs or provide personalized advice. There's limited amount of time that I have at this point, so that's not going to be part of what we'll do here at Fusioneers. It's mainly just a educational type course and community. And just to be clear, this is not free for me to make. It's $100 a month. This is just what it costs to have a Skool community. So I do have some rules that I want to institute, and it is my community. So I feel like that's something that I'm well within the bounds of reason to implement. So I just want to briefly talk about those. So the number one rule is just treat others like you want to be treated. I think that's pretty easy to understand. And since we are kind of trying to appeal to a wide range of people, I don't want there to be any vulgar language. I want this to be a clean community. If there's children that want to join the community or teenagers that want to learn about CAD, I hope that they can feel welcomed here. And I don't want vulgar language, and that's a non-negotiable rule. We're also not going to do any promotional content whatsoever. If there is something that someone reaches out to me and would like to provide the community with a discount, then that's different. But if you're trying to join the community and promote your stuff, then that's not going to be permitted. And then I really want people to give thoughtful feedback. I get comments a lot on social media about things that are not very thoughtful. They're kind of not well thought out. For instance, I'll design something that I think about for hours and hours and do 10 iterations on, and then someone watches my 60-second video and makes a smart comment about why it's wrong. And generally speaking, I've probably thought about the design a little bit more than you did in the 60 seconds. So I really appreciate constructive criticism. I think that that's very welcomed. As I mentioned earlier, if there's a better way to do something, please suggest it, and I will attempt to either say why I did it a different way or why I should go back and change it, and I will happily do that. So let's just try to give thoughtful feedback to people, me and all other people in the community included. And then this last one is kind of one of my pet peeves. I don't know if this is going to deter people from joining the community or not, but to be honest, as I've already mentioned, it's my community. It's $100 a month, so I feel like I can make the rules that I want at this point. But this is kind of stolen from Layla Hormozy and Alex Hormozy, the people that invested in Skool, and they call it a little bit different name. But generally speaking, I want people to try to use their FIO muscle, which is kind of a fake muscle, but it's figure it out muscle. So, I see in a lot of Facebook groups, people asking the same questions over and over again. And it's like they don't for some reason, try to use Google to answer the question. And, it's one thing if you don't know what to ask, like what vocabulary words to use, but it's another thing to ask a very straightforward question that's like in the first result of Google and is answered very plainly and clearly. So that's just a good practice in general. It's not just for this Skool community. It's not for, Fusion. It's for just life in general. I think a good place to ask your first questions are with Google. Spend 5 or 10 minutes just reading through the top couple of results, maybe looking at YouTube to see if there's anything there, and then kind of go on to the communities from there. And I'm not trying to deter people from asking questions. I'm just saying that very basic questions you should try to kind of learn, do some independent research and see if you can come up with anything that kind of answers that to some extent. So those are the 5 rules. May edit them in the future, but hopefully this is something that we can all agree to. And then kind of to sum up this first video, and this is kind of running pretty long, but I want to give y'all some other really good resources that I found useful over the past 5 or 6 years that I've done Fusion. These are all great resources. They're probably, I still use these resources personally. So if I use them, then I think for sure y'all could probably get some value out of them. So the number one thing I would like to kind of recommend is the Autodesk Learning Catalog. It's a free resource. They have quick tutorials on different things that are really helpful if you're just getting started. It's made by Autodesk, so surely they know probably better than anyone how to do things in their software. So I think that this is a great underutilized resource. You can see here, if you just search for Fusion in the software search box here, there's 62 results. Introduction to Fusion. It's a good place to start. Hopefully my videos will also complement them well, but that's just a resource that I don't see mentioned that much. I think it's pretty good. I've done a lot of the tutorials myself. Then Lars Christensen. This guy was kind of the OG original Fusion tutorial guy. His videos are, you can see here, from 7 years ago. So it's 3.2 million views. So I'm trying to do my best to mimic some of his success at some point, but he's really, really knowledgeable. I think he used to work at Autodesk, but now he's kind of moved on. He hasn't posted much recently or in the past, I think, year or so, but some of his stuff is dated because of that. So some of the interface has changed since he made videos, but it's still really relevant. He's taught me a lot of what I know. This is another really well-known Fusion tutorial, product design online. He's just really good, makes really clear tutorials. This is another good place to start if you don't like the things I make. Has 1.6 million views, so he's doing something right. Good 30-minute tutorial there. Learn everything about design has also been something that I feel like is really useful. This guy doesn't have as many subscribers, but he does a lot of more of the surface stuff, and he does some stuff on scanning objects into Fusion and editing those that are really well done as well. NYC CNC is another really good channel. He does more about CNC related stuff, which I'm not really going to cover much, but he has really good Fusion tutorials as well. I think he has a playlist on Fusion, and I know I've learned one really helpful thing, which was how to take a picture of something and scale it in Fusion and then kind of copy it from there. So he has a good video on that. So if you're interested in something like that, you could check his stuff out. Fusion 360 Skool is another one that I really like. He's very, very knowledgeable of Fusion and does a really good job of showing some pretty complex techniques, to be honest. And something that I really appreciate is that he, goes step by step. It's really clear, and something that I think is very useful. And then number 7, this isn't a Fusion related channel, but he has 345,000 subscribers, and he basically does these mechanisms which are very very well animated, and there's some really cool things, and it just gives you some ideas about different things that you can make in Fusion. And I think that it's a really good channel just to kind of get your mind working in that way. All right, so that about sums it up. If you're interested in Fusioneers, I hope that you'll either subscribe to the YouTube channel or check us out at skool.com/Fusioneers. Thanks for watching.